Kia ora and welcome back to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon and this time I'm doing a very new thing. I'm doing a video which is not a battle report and it's not Necromunda tactics. I'm actually going to do some terrain stuff here and some hobbying, which is a first for me and I'm kind of nervous doing it actually. I've been painting since I was about 6 years old. I'm now 41 this year. I started painting very, very young you know, back in the day, basically, way before Necromunda was even a thing. And off and on, I am an okay painter. I think, you know, my Instagram's got a few followers and I have my own style, I suppose. Now, I'll admit wholeheartedly that I am not by any means patient. I'm not a patient person. I rush everything. I like to just get it fucking done. And if you're like me in that regard and you can't be bothered to spend as much time and you don't have the attention to detail or the attention in general to be able to focus on a project that much, then this video is for you. So I'm kind of new to painting scenery though. I've always painted miniatures since I was a kid and I've always loved it and I've always really enjoyed it. And I have always had that approach that I just sort of like to get shit done. Even when I was a kid, I just didn't have the attention to be able to sit down for hours and hours on end and paint one miniature. Instead, I would sit down for an hour and I would end up painting an entire army or something. So I've always looked for ways of cheating, looked for ways of being able to just get more done. And since sort of finding my own style and finding my own processes, that has now become really, really quick, and anyone who knows me will know that I can bash out an entire Necromunda gang in very little time, very, very little time. Now that approach, obviously, with scenery is new for me because I haven't really done much painting of scenery. You can see the board in the background, the board that we use here at Wellywood Wargaming for our battle reports and stuff. Half of it's my scenery, half of it's other members of the group. And I just felt that the scenery that we have is nice, but most of it's MDF and it's just doesn't have that level of detail that the Games Workshop stuff has. And I bit the bullet. I didn't quite have the money, but I've done it anyway, and I've bought the entire Hive sector. So as soon as I open the box of the Hive sector stuff, I'm like overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that's in it. However, that night I came and sat up here and I glued and, you know, unsprued the entire box and put it all together in a matter of hours, which was painful, but I've done it and I smashed it all out that night. I then came back the next day and I spray painted the entire thing black, and I then spent about an hour yesterday doing a couple of key pieces. I've got this gunk tank here that I've done already. It's finished. It looks great. I'm going to try and get some pictures onto this video so you can see. I'm really happy with it, and I've spent an incredibly small amount of time on it. Here's some stairs that I made earlier, really grimy looking, proper Grimdark, filthy, which is exactly how my minis look. And there's another one that I've got as well here. You can see the sort of pink panels and patina on stuff, which took me absolutely no time at all. I'm actually going to show you the processes in this video. But yeah, if you're like me and you just don't have the patience to get it done, then this video is for you. I hope it's of value. Again, I am no great painter. I think I would be a much better painter if I did have that patience, but it's art at the end of the day, and I think that a lot of people that do this hobby aren't artists. They're not creative people. If you are a creative person and you are artistic in nature, then you might have this approach instead of being too worried and technical about things. I think there's a lot that holds people back in this hobby, and sometimes you just got to go for it. So I'm trying to let you know that you can just go for it and not worry about fucking up. No one's going to care. With scenery particularly, I think honestly, the more basic and muted and dulled down and realistic looking, I suppose, the better, because you don't want to see scenery that's bright, vivid colors personally against miniatures, because those miniatures are going to get swallowed up in that chaos. They're going to get swallowed up in all that color. I like filthy, dark, grim, horrible stuff, and I hope you do too. And this is just going to show you exactly the processes that I have came up with actually in the last 24 hours, and I find are already working really well, and I can't wait to get the whole board done in this terrain, just to sort of show you what I mean. But there we go, we'll go on over to the table and I'll show you what I mean. So I watched a lot of Blue Peter as a kid, obviously, so here's what I made earlier. But basically, yeah, you can see these are still wet slightly. I just finished washing them in a haste. But we've got some really nice looking, grimy, very basic, muted, but nice looking terrain here. I'm just going to move these out of the way so you can see what I'm going to be doing. But there you go, there's the gunk tank from the, excuse my hands by the way, they're covered in paint, but that's just the way I like to work. But yeah, we've got the gunk tank here, fantastic looking piece of terrain this, a real nice addition there, but that took me about 5 minutes to do, and I'm not shitting you. I'm going to prove it by making a video that is so quick that you just won't believe it. But here we go, we've got these stairs. Again, you're probably not going to get the best impression of this on video because I'm doing this with my phone and this is the first time I'm doing this, but we've got some really nice reddish, rusty hues on here. And the trick to these stairs for me was the fact that I used a lot of texture paint on the stairs themselves to make them look really, really rusty and exquisitely grimdark. So I'm just going to quickly go through what I use for this terrain now that I've sort of figured out a recipe in about 5 minutes. Now I've wanted to be using this paint for a long time because it's quite frankly the best color I can think of. It's fantastic. It's called Heavy Warming Grey by, it's one of the game color ones, but normally I buy Citadel paints, but this one you can't really replicate this. It is like a pastel-y pink grey, and I'm using that for the wall panels on these and for the floor sections as well. But I've only really got what, 5-6 colors here. I've got some Agrax Earthshade here, just for the video actually. Normally I would use just an oil wash, but I'm going to use Agrax Earthshade here just because really, it's easier. Some Leadbelcher of course, I like to use that as opposed to the Necron compound that you see a lot of people using in videos. I don't like the dry paints personally, I prefer working with wetter paints and just taking them off. It might be wasteful, but who cares? But Leadbelcher is it's not too bright, you know. I don't want things looking too bright in this case at all. I've also got some Dryad bark, which is a base brown, kind of warmish brown there. I could use a different brown, but this is just literally the first one I pulled out of the pile. And then of course I've got Doombull Brown here as well, which again is just the only reddish brown that I seem to have. It's quite an orangey brown, that one. The other one I've got is just a basic sort of acrylic that cost me about $5 from the warehouse in New Zealand. But yeah, very, very cheap. Just orange acrylic paint called Red Ochre there. I've got a dirty pot of water, which is an old tahini jar there. But there's no frills here at Wellingwood Wargaming, absolutely no frills at all. I'm not going to bullshit you, I'm not going to pretend that I do something that I don't. I'm just going to give it to you raw and hardcore, which is what we like in the Grimdark universe. So I'm going to begin. I'll just show you my brushes. I don't use nice brushes, I use shit brushes, and these are some of my son's brushes for painting at school and stuff. And actually I got a few freebie, got orange paint all over my hands there. I got a few freebie brushes from my makeup colleagues who work in makeup, so that's quite nice. So I've got brushes like this, which is pretty good. I may have to just turn the camera quickly off though, just while I wash my hands and get all this orange paint off, so I'll be back shortly. So that wasn't a good start. I've got my hands covered in this shitty, sticky orange paint, but it's all good. That's what we're here for. This is going to happen. These are part of the hazards of the job. I've even got it on my phone, I can see. But yeah, we'll get into it. This is one of the Necromunda column sections from the Hive sector. I actually bought the full Hive sector, so the reason why I'm painting this scenery so fast and without any care in the world is because there's so much of it, and I just want to get it done because, to be honest, I can't wait to do battle reports with some proper scenery. Yeah, sure, the stuff in the background's quite nice, but it just hasn't got the level of detail that I really like about the Games Workshop scenery. So yeah, it's lovely stuff. But anyway, pretty simple here. I've spray painted this black. Now, before you spray paint it black, I would suggest making sure that you don't glue down your tops on these, just to give you modularity. This one's a bit stiff there, but it will come off. Just so you can turn them upside down and build multi-levels and stuff with these as well. Now, the thing about this terrain is obviously you don't want to add too much detail to the columns and walls particularly, just because yeah, exactly, you want to have that modularity, you want to be able to change things up if need be. But you know, things like this, obviously I can add texture paint to it and I can add a few more details. Same with the stairs, you know, because these stairs, I can put more texture paint on those because they're not going to be attached to anything anytime soon. So but do bear in mind where things connect, etc, etc, you're going to want them fairly clean looking, which does kind of go against the aesthetic that I've got in this Grimdark sort of style. Anyway, here we are. We've got a Necromunda column from the Hive sector set, and I haven't put any extra details on it. I haven't actually put any texture paint on this one. So we're just going to go right in, and I'm going to prove to you how quick and easy it is to do the method that I've got down already here. And we're going to start off by adding a kind of, not a dry brush necessarily, not a wet brush either, but somewhere in the middle. We are going to use a Doombull Brown layer here straight up. So this one's going straight on. I'm going to use a fairly large brush here. In fact, I might use this white one because it's not wet at all. But I'm going to get a considerable amount of paint on my brush, and I'm just going to splotch it on my paper here. I hope you can see that. And I'm just going to start applying it very liberally all over the entire thing. And it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter. I'm not doing a dry brush here. It doesn't matter if I catch some of the recesses, that kind of going to add to it. I want to be messy, I want to be hitting it, I want to be treating it badly. Basically, it's really that simple. But yeah, once we've got this, this layer on, I'm just going to do the whole thing actually right in front of you. Look, there's a huge chunk of brown that I've got there just because I went into hardcore there. But you know, make sure you don't get fingerprints on it as well. Do use, one good technique I've got is just put your fingers underneath like that and just smash it out and rotate it on your hand like that. Now obviously if you're doing sort of a fairly thin layer of paint like this, it's going to dry very quickly. So still be careful though, you don't want fingerprints on it. Fingerprints don't look like grimy, rusty, filthy stuff, they look like fingerprints. So you don't really want that, but you can already see, look, all the details getting hit from multiple angles. Sometimes I'm using circular motions, but I'm being quite aggressive with it. I don't care if I treat it harshly. That's kind of what we want. Now that's basically that. So I hope you can see there, but that is hopefully picking up the brown there. Some areas have got more on it, some areas haven't, but that's essentially it. Now, because I'm hardcore and because I like to do things dirty and horrible, I'm actually going to go straight into my orange without even washing my brush because I'm just a horrible person. And I'm even going to put the orange onto a piece of paper there. I'm not even going to use a palette. And some of you are going to be going, Damon, what are you doing? You're an awful person for not using a palette, for not washing your brush. But just get it fucking done. Basically, that's my approach to everything in life, is just get it fucking done. Now, I'm using an orange here. This is just an acrylic orange. The thing about this one, I find that it's quite sticky and it doesn't dry very quickly. But again, we're going to be doing the same thing here. What I've noticed with this sort of cheap, you know, kids paint, basically is what it is from the warehouse, is also that it is quite a bit less opaque naturally, even though it is comes out quite thick. You don't really have to mix it with water, of course. I mean, we're doing a dry brush anyway, and again, I'm just doing it slightly less heavy than I would with the brown, but not much really. Like, you can see that it's picking up those details with the orange, but it's not too It's not too much, you know. It just basically means the brown now has an accent. So the brown kind of has almost, you know, 2 layers of brown. But yeah, that's really simple. We're catching all the raised areas with the orange, and it's giving it a rusty sort of effect here. Now, of course, I know that rust doesn't perform like this. Rust doesn't just join onto the edges. Rust acts in much more peculiar ways. If you go out and have a look at some examples of rust on the street, or you'll find that there are millions of different ways that rust reacts to the environment and stuff. But we don't really care, because scenery is a backdrop. No one's going to analyze it and go, that's not how rust should look. Who cares, basically? We don't care. I don't care. You shouldn't care either. So stop worrying about it. So there you go. That is your brown and your orange now. So what I'm going to do now, though, is a bit of stippling. So stippling is... Well, first I will wash this brush, actually, because it's filthy. So I'll put that in my tahini jar. Anybody out there eat tahini? I eat tahini every day. Have done for 40 years of my life. Just an interesting fact about me there. I'm sure that's not what you expected to come here and hear, but yeah, we're just gonna flip over and we're gonna do some stippling with this smoke grey now. So I'm not gonna put this on my pad. Sorry, my pad of paper there. I'm actually just going to put it on the top of a pot here. Now, I don't know if you can see that colour there, but it's a really lovely pastel-y pinky grey here. I'm only going to put a little bit on there because I don't want too much. Now, I'm not going to dilute it. I'm not going to water it down at all. I'm just going to get my little brush here. Now, this one's quite wide and flat. It's also synthetic as well, so it's a bit tougher than any non-synthetic brushes, but I'm just going to dab it in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to stipple with it. So on these panels here, where you've got your, I'm just going to do this, look. And I'm going to make sure that I turn my brush around as we go. But try not to get the edges. It's okay if you go right up to the edge, but really we want it looking blotchy, we want it looking patchy. We don't want to cover it all in one even color, because it just won't look worn. It won't look, do you know what I mean? It just won't look good. I'm doing this super fast as well, as you can see. Now you can go back over it once it's a little bit dry, but when you get little blobby bits like that, just sort of push it around, and you're just looking at tapping it around just so that it doesn't look too messy, but we want it patchy in the middle. We want that patchiness. That's fine. So I'm going to go around, I'm going to do all of these little bits here. Now, because the reason why I'm using a sort of flatter brush, so I find if I turn it on its side, I can get right up to the edges quite nicely and not have to use a smaller brush as a result. I'm just going kind of closer to the edges, and then I turn the brush to get in those bits. Yeah, sure, it's messy as hell. Now these little corners here, I'm not even going to do them, to be honest, because once you've got a wash on it, and once this paint has dried quite with darker areas on it and stuff, with the blotchy brown underneath, you're not really going to notice those corners. Well, at least I don't think anyway. And again, like I keep reiterating this, but painting scenery, to me, this is the first time I've really done it, and I'm really enjoying it, as you can tell, because I'm making a video on it now. But I never thought I would be doing this sort of thing, but it's very enjoyable because it's, you know, I don't have to worry about edge highlighting anything. I don't have to worry about what people think, because it's literally just going to be in the background. Now it's going to be a backdrop for my much more detailed miniatures. Now I'm a lazy painter. You know, I've always cut corners and shortcuts. I will not do things that most conventional painters do. I will not spend ages on anything because I just don't have the patience. That's fine to me. I like that blotchiness. But yeah, I mean, I know there are lots and lots of people out there that have piles and piles of plastic, and you know, their pile of shame. And for me, that's never been a problem. I've never had that, because I just smash everything out instantly. And I'm not bigging myself up here, but I just have to get things done. I can't just leave it. So I'm a beast when it comes to hobbying. So you know, if I have got the time to get in here and just slap some paint on something, I will go mad, and I'll paint an entire gang in a night, or I'll paint, you know, a large amount of stuff very, very quickly. And it's cool, it's good, because I can, you know, I've now got, you know, this is the den where we do all our game nights and stuff, and I've got so many sort of Necromunda bounty hunters and dramatis personae that all my friends can use in their games as well, and they're all painted and ready for them to go, so people can just borrow my miniatures, and I'm fine with that. It's nice being able to do that, but yeah, no one ever really sort of seems to understand how and why I get things done so quickly, but it's just who I am. It's just the way I am. I'm very proactive. If I'm passionate about something, then easy peasy. If I'm not passionate about something, I just won't do it. It's simple. But I've always been passionate about Necromunda since back in the day. But never did I ever dream that it would get this good in terms of the detail and the scenery and the miniatures that we have today. It's just incredible. And the community as well. Like, I just wanted to mention that quickly, because I've been watching, you know, leading up to making these bits of terrain, I've been watching some videos out there of some other YouTube channels that I've subscribed to, and generally I'm quite like, I don't tend to watch a lot of other people's videos normally, but with the terrain and stuff, I really felt like I needed to do a bit of research, and some of them were really helpful. Some of them were far too detailed and far too painstaking for me, and I just don't have that patience. But the community on a whole out there for Necromunda, I find, is so lovely, and everybody's so keen to share, and there are loads of other YouTube channels that are, you know, wanting to support me and that I support too, and it's just really lovely to have such a vibrant community for this game. And honestly, I don't know if it's the same with other systems like 40k and stuff, because honestly, like, from my perspective, the 40k players seem to be a lot less community orientated. I don't know, maybe I'm just making it up, but it's very competitive, you know. There's a lot of tournament stuff, and I just see a lot of quite salty people posting all sorts of, like, you can't do it that way and you can't do it this way, whereas Necromunda for me seems to be far more free and far more of a refuge for more creative people, I'd say. Now what I'm doing here, look, as I'm just going over some of the bits that I just felt didn't have enough on, but it almost looks like a watercolor. Like, we've got these little areas of patchiness. I quite like that, you know. That's cool. We're going to leave that. So that is 3 steps. Look at my fingers, disgusting. That's 3 steps already. So I've done a brown, I've done an orange, and I've now done this sort of smoky grey pink there. So I'm going to pop that down quickly while I quickly semi-wash my brush, because I'm the type of person to just leave my brushes out otherwise. Now that's drying. It won't take long to dry at all. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to do another dry brush here, but this time Leadbelcher. Now the reason why I do Leadbelcher after doing the pink is because it kind of brings things together a little bit, and it can, where you might have gone over the edges a little bit, it can sort of hide that. So I tend to leave the metal till last. So this is an old pot of Leadbelcher. It's a very old pot, so which I quite like, because it's got all the granules and sort of yucky dry bits in the bottom there. Now this brush is a little bit wet, so I'm just gonna dab it on here to get any moisture out. Now, should I use a brush this big? Probably not. It's huge, right? So let's use a smaller let's use a smaller one, because that's mental. Actually, you know what? We'll use this one, which is kind of gross and it's kind of already had it, so we'll use this one. Now I'm going to dip that fairly liberally in the Leadbelcher there, and what's annoying is I'm left-handed and I put the camera on the left-hand side, and I'm hoping that I'm not blocking the shots too much here, but you get the idea. We're doing a dry brush, easy peasy. Now, I don't want to be too heavy with this. I really just want to hit the top areas of stuff. I'm going to hit the top sides. I'm not going to hit it from any other angle other than from the top, actually. Why is that? Not really sure, to be honest. I just feel like it looks better this way. Again, this is my recipe that I only really did last night, actually, so it's not really tried and tested much, but I feel like this works. If you get little streaks, I quite like that, but if they're too heavy, they can look kind of whack. So make sure you catch the rivets. Really important to catch the rivets, especially around the windows there, and any bits where you feel like there needs to be more metal emphasis. Then, see, I've gone a bit heavy there, look, but that's not a problem because we're going to go back in with another step now, just after this, to clean these things up. Well, not clean it up because I don't want it to look clean, but you know what I mean. We're going to go back with a sponge, actually, and just catch the... Now, this little bit here, look, I want to try and get this from a few angles because I think I need a bit more paint on my brush, but I'm actually running out of paint, which is a good time to start doing circular motions, I think, because this will catch all of those internal mechanisms, pipes, taps, fans and whatnot that you've got inside there, some cables, and that looks pretty good, actually. So there you go. That's pretty simple, right? So we did a brown, we did an orange, we did a pinky grey panels, and then we've done a dry brush of Leadbelcher over the top. That looks fairly okay, doesn't it? I mean, it's okay, it's not bad, but it's certainly not finished. So the next step I'm going to do, again, just wanted to reiterate that for me, scenery, at least as far as I'm aware, scenery should be a backdrop to your figures. It shouldn't, to your battles and stuff, it shouldn't be too bright, too garish. You know, if you go out there and look at buildings in the street, they're not bright orange and bright red and crazy colours, generally speaking, because we don't live in fucking Teletubby land. So when I see Grimdark tables that are bright yellow and bright orange, it's just not Grimdark for me. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Anyway, so I've done that and I did it all in one take, so that hasn't taken me very long at all, just to prove to you how long this actually takes. Very, very little time. So the next step is I'm going to get a makeup sponge here. Now, what you'll notice when you've used the same sponge is that you'll need to peel off the bits that solidify and dry, and you kind of want that anyway because we want rugged edges to our sponge. So I'm just going to peel off a few bits there. That's nice, we've got nice uneven edges. I'm then going to grab my dryad bark, give it a shake. You don't even have to give it a shake really, as long as there's some in there. And what I'm going to do is just, I mean, this sponge is quite large, to be honest. I'm going to blot it on here. And really, you know what to do with this stuff. If you haven't seen this before, then, I mean, it's pretty standard, but I'm just going to tap it mainly on those panels. Now, when you tap it, just make sure that you turn the sponge, because if you use the same tapping motion over and over again from the same angle, you'll find that it just doesn't look, it looks too even, it doesn't look too random. So we want random is nice. If it goes onto the edges, absolutely fine, because we're going to do the rest of the mini anyway. I'm actually going to do the top here. But yeah, you get the idea. I actually want bigger splotches, that's fine, because what I'm going to do is go back in and just sort of smooth it out with the makeup sponge around the edges, just so it doesn't look so bad. But yeah, that's what we've got. We've got those steps to create a pretty mucky looking section of column from Necromunda. After that, see, maybe I did go a bit too crazy on that, but I don't really care. It's going to be in the background, but you get the idea. I'm just really showing the techniques rather than the actual piece, because if I wanted to show you a better looking piece, then I would have showed you something like this with the stairs, you know, because the stairs to me look great, especially with the gnarly looking rusty gubbins on the stairs and the handrails and stuff. It all looks great. So what we're going to do now is the last step. I'm actually just going to put a wash over it. Now what I'd normally do is I'd normally use an oil wash, and I'd use a sort of burnt sienna, or sorry, burnt umber, like a dark reddish brown, mixed with a black to do an oil wash. Now an oil wash to me is better because the way they dry is nicer. They're easy to work with. You can wipe bits away as you work. But I've just found actually with these pieces over here that I did earlier, I actually drowned them in this wash. And I'll be honest, I've never really used Agrax Earthshade much before. I'm much more of an oil wash kind of guy. But we're going to hit this with a really heavy wash of Agrax Earthshade, and that really mutes down all the colours even further. And you might be thinking, oh, but it's too dark. It's not too dark. It's a backdrop. When you take a photo of something, like if you're taking a photo of your miniature and you've got bright shit in the background, your miniature's going to look rubbish, isn't it? It's the same with scenery. You don't want your scenery to be popping and standing out. If you do, then it needs to be on its own. But if you want your miniatures to look nice and you're doing battle reports and stuff, then I think darker, more moody, more gritty and realistic is best, personally. Simple is best, you know, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's pretty much it, you know. You can see where this is going. I'm just going to get a really stupidly liberal amount on the top here. Now, another reason why I wouldn't normally use Citadel washes for this kind of thing is because it's fucking expensive. So this one pot probably costs about $13 in New Zealand, which is a lot if you're British or American. We pay a lot for stuff here, especially for Games Workshop stuff. It's like 3 times the price that it is in the UK for some stupid reason. But so that's the main reason why I wouldn't use it, just because of the price. Because I could probably, if I did this whole hive sector with Agrax Earthshade, it would cost me an absolute fortune, wouldn't it? So an oil wash is much more practical. You could also use inks as well. You could buy some artist's inks and just water them down and mix them with some PVA glue, for example, just to bind them a little bit more. I've seen that in some videos, actually. You got a nice little splodge of orange there that was just kind of random. I mean, that's wet, so it's hard for you to see what is going on here, but I'm just going to leave that to dry on here while I quickly wash my brush and put my tools down. And that was speed painting, and it's at its finest and its most beautiful and artistic, because look at my hands. That's what we want. But look at this guy, you know. I hope the colors are showing up here, but I mean, this guy looks pretty good, right? That took me literally 5 minutes, and I love it already. Like, I'm super stoked with that. You might not be. You might be thinking, you might be watching this thinking, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's got no idea how to do scenery. But I like it. I think it looks good. Here's another one I made earlier. Now, yeah, people are painting these tanks red and orange and stuff. I just leave them the same color as the wall. Why not? But yeah, this one's got some really nice patina in the middle there. I just wiped that with my finger, which is why I've got such dirty hands. But you can see the lovely pastel colors and stuff that we've got on there. Really match the reddish browns and muck and filth that we've got there. But there you go. That's basically that. Let's move back to my own camera. So there we have it. Pretty fucking easy, eh? Excuse my language. I'm sorry, I do swear a lot. But yeah, I see so many videos out there of, you know, the most basic stuff done in a really overcomplicated, over-technical way, and it just shouldn't be. Like, it really shouldn't. And I hope that this video gives those of you who have been a bit intimidated by the terrain side of the hobby, perhaps like I was actually, to just give it a go and just smash it out, because it really is that easy. It takes 2 or 3 paints and a little bit of dry brushing, and you're there basically. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like, share, subscribe. I'm going to be doing another battle report tonight, which is going to be Escher against my outcasts in a murder cyborg mission, so stay tuned for that one. But if you like this hobby video, if it was of value to you and you want me to do some more, then please let me know. It would be really cool. I enjoyed doing that, actually. It was nice to do that. I felt like I was Tony Hart from back in the 80s. So Tony Hart, rest in peace. Peace out.